How Archbishop James Ussher helps us understand current events. Archbishop James Ussher put the events of the Bible into the timeline of history. From the earliest times, there have been Christians who have believed that the world is on a 7,000-year timetable, following a pattern of 6 days of creation, followed by 1 day of rest. You can see more about Bishop Ussher on my previous video about him, or at the website prophecyworkshop.com on the Bishop James Ussher page. The point I'm making here is that the nation of Israel is at the center of God's timetable, and nothing can change this. If we look at the details of Archbishop Ussher's chronology, we can see that he believed in 7 ages of time, which finished in 73 AD, with the complete annihilation of the nation of Israel by the Romans. He called this the end of Jewish affairs. Many people in the church at the time believed that because the Jews as a nation had rejected Jesus, their position as God's chosen people had been replaced by Christians or by the church. Here is a reminder of the Archbishop's plan of history. So we can see the 7 ages. The first stage was from the creation of the world to the flood, then from the flood to Abraham, from Abraham to Moses, from Moses down to Solomon. The 5th age, Solomon to the fall of Jerusalem. The 6th age, the captivity in Babylon, up until the birth of Jesus. And the 7th age, the final age, from the birth of Jesus to the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans. As I understand it, when it got to the end of the 7th age in 73 AD, Archbishop Ussher believed that was the end of Jewish affairs. There was no more Jewish nation. And this idea had a great influence on how the church perceived Israel. However, we know that Archbishop Ussher was wrong about this, because 73 AD was not the end of Jewish affairs. The Jews continued as a people, and God restored their nation back to them in 1948. God always promised that he would bring the Jews back to their land. There's quite an interesting history to this, going back to the 17th century and beyond. As soon as people had access to reading the Bible, they realized there were many promises in it that God would restore the Jews to Israel. I've picked one of the verses here, Jeremiah chapter 24 verse 6. "But I will set mine eyes upon them for good, and I will bring them again to this land, and I will build them and not pull them down, and I will plant them and not pluck them up." Archbishop Ussher was, for me, the father of Bible chronology. He was a great man, but he was also a man of his time. Many Bibles incorporated his chronology into their pages, and to some extent his chronology, great as it was, encouraged the wrong idea that the church had replaced the Jews in God's plans. We now know that God's promises to Israel stand forever. So, what is Israel exactly? It is clear from the Bible that when the people of Israel crossed the Jordan River, their 40 years of wandering came to an end, and they entered the Promised Land. Everything on the west side of the Jordan was their land. However, God had promised them a much larger area. Deuteronomy chapter 11 verse 24. "Every place whereon the soles of your feet shall tread shall be yours. From the wilderness and Lebanon, from the river Euphrates, even unto the utmost sea, shall your coast be." In other words, everything from the Mediterranean Sea to the Euphrates River is actually promised to Israel. This would include modern-day Syria, Iraq, and Jordan. In the millennial period, these lands will belong to Israel. In the period we are now in, pre-tribulation, I would expect Israel to conquer all its immediate enemies, as per Psalm 83. and take control of all the lands west of the Jordan River. Archbishop Ussher was correct in believing that the world runs on God's timetable. That timetable is still running. What we see happening in Israel today is a part of the continuing story of the restoration of the Jewish people to the land that God promised them. Every people on earth has a land allotted to them and a time appointed to them. Ultimately, every people that accepts Jesus will be restored to their own land in God's time. Acts chapter 17, verse 26 to 27. And hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed, and the bounds of their habitation, that they should seek the Lord, if haply they might feel after him and find him, though he be not far from every one of us. This restoration process starts with Israel, and the process will be bitterly opposed by Satan, who hates God's order. For a believer in Bible prophecy, the key thing is to accept God's judgments, his promises, and his timetable. However much we may sympathize with the plight of ordinary Palestinian people at the moment, as I'm writing it November 2023, we should still not oppose God's purposes. The land will be restored to Israel. For non-Jews living in the lands west of the Jordan River, it will go better for them if they accept this inevitable process than fight against it. Thank you for listening. If you found this video interesting, you can find more information at prophecy-workshop.com.